The modes are a theory in guitar subject that I very, very frequently see discussed poorly online or just taught in a confusing manner. And so in today's video, I wanted to highlight the way of thinking that the modes that most professional jazz and improvising musicians use to make sense of these complicated subjects and make them actually practical and useful in your day-to-day playing. So in this video, I'm going to break down all 7 modes of the major scale, how and when to use them, and how to think about using them. Because it's something that, again, I see a lot of discourse about online that I frankly just disagree with or think is inefficient and unhelpful, frankly. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to actually think about the modes. So a lot of the time I see people talk about the modes, and I have students who will tell me they know about the modes, where they go, oh, well, Dorian is the major scale starting from the second. And that's kind of true. That's where the mode comes from. But in order to actually use the modes and think about them in an efficient and good way, we need to actually think about the modes as their own kind of standalone things. So rather than thinking, oh, well, G Dorian is F major starting from G, just think of G Dorian as G Dorian. And what is G Dorian? It's a minor scale with a major 6, which makes it happy. So after the major scale, which most of us know, say I had G major, this is the sound that we all know and love over a sustained drone. There's the major scale. Now Dorian fits over a minor 7 chord or a minor chord. Phrygian would be the next mode. So say we were playing G Phrygian. This also fits around a minor 7 chord. That would sound like this. Then we would get Lydian, which works over a major 7 chord again. So we would get G Lydian. Then we get Mixolydian, which works over a dominant 7 chord. Then we'd get Aeolian or minor, which fits over, of course, a minor 7 chord. And then lastly, we get Locrian, which sits over either a minor chord or a half diminished chord, minor 7 flat 5. Now, when using these modes, it's important to kind of try to understand them beyond just what they are, as being in a modal hierarchy is what I would describe it as. And that's basically this process of thinking of the modes from the brightest sound you can make to the darkest sound that you can make. And before we put these in the modal hierarchy, first I want to talk about how we know whether they're major or minor modes or dominant modes. So we have 2 major modes contained within the major scale, and those are going to be Ionian and Lydian. Now the difference between these 2 modes is that Lydian has the same notes as the major scale, 1, 2, 3, but it has a sharp 4th. So that makes it brighter. So in the major modes, if I were to list them from brightest to darkest, the major scale is actually the darkest major mode. So it would go Lydian up top because it has the sharp 4, and then it would go Ionian, which is right beneath it. Now, the key to understanding why both of these can be used over major chords, again, I would think of them as like seasonings or flavors. If I sustain the same chord, so I'm just going to play a G triad, I'm going to sustain that. I'll get a little bit quieter of a grab. Here is me playing a simple idea in G major. Here's the same thing but Lydian. Now back to major. The major is a little bit darker. It's a little bit more dull, I would say, than Lydian. Again, here's G major. If I go, and I'll play. Here's G Lydian. It's just got that little bit more harshness to it. I almost think of Lydian as like, it has a lemony kind of acidity, citrusy vibe to it. But so that would be our major modes. And the reason that these both work over major chords or major 7 chords is because we In each of these scales, we get the root, the major third, the fifth, and the major seventh. I always describe this to students as it's like when you change modes around a chord. So major modes, if the chord is G major, I could legally play Lydian or major over it. I say that it's like the arpeggio being contained within the scale is like the room, and then the altered notes in between the arpeggio notes is what makes it's like the decoration of the room. It's how it works. So either of those is suitable over a major chord. It just depends on what effect you want to get. Now, minor modes, we have 3. And from brightest to darkest, those would be Dorian, Phrygian, Dorian, Aeolian, Phrygian. Now, Dorian, I always think of as a minor scale with a natural sixth. So if you think about it, the minor scale versus the major scale has a flat third, a flat sixth, and a flat seventh. So when Dorian only has, sorry, I'm not flipping you off when I do that, but Dorian has only a flat third and a flat seventh, so its sound is a little bit brighter. So here's G minor. And now here I'm going to play G Dorian over top of it. So here's G Aeolian over that. One more time, Dorian, Aeolian. Do you just hear how that's that little bit darker with the flat sixth? And then the darkest minor mode of all is going to be Phrygian, which would sound like this. It's just a little bit more evil and mysterious than the other ones. So again, I'm going to play G minor, and now I'm going to play Dorian over it, then Aeolian, and then Phrygian. So here's Dorian. Here's Aeolian. Now here's Phrygian. So thinking about those lets me think more creatively with the modes, where I can play any of those over any minor chord, but I'm specifically thinking about whether I want it to sound happy or whether I want it to sound dark. And again, we can mix and match between these. I could play Dorian over every minor chord in a song. I could play Phrygian over every minor chord in a song. It doesn't matter because they all contain the arpeggio notes. I'm just changing the decorations inside the room. Now, the 2 last modes to speak about are a little bit more specific. So for example, Mixolydian is what we would think of as a dominant mode, because it's a major scale with a flat seventh. So it likes to play over, say, G7. Helps if I have my volume knob turned on. Over a G7, we could play this. And that's really the only case that it fits. It could also be, say you were in the key of C and you just played a G major triad. That is the 5 chord in this case, so it would be it's implied that it's a dominant chord, so you can play it just over triads, but just be aware that whenever you play Mixolydian, you're going to be implying a dominant sound. And then the other special kind of use case is if we were to look at Locrian, that's a half diminished chord, or a minor 7 flat 5. That's the scale that would pair with that. So it is only used in very particular cases. Minor 7 flat 5 chords are pretty uncommon to hear outside of art music and things like jazz and fusion. So again, it's maybe not the most worthwhile one to spend a bunch of time thinking about if you don't want to play those styles of music, but it's a great one to think about and ponder. And so Locrian is going to be the darkest mode possible to us, because it's basically a major scale where everything but the 4 is lowered. But anyways, I hope you found this video useful, and maybe it gave you a new way to think about the modes and how you can use them and how you can flavor your improvisations and your composing. But if you enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It truly helps me out more than you could know. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, there's a link to get in touch with me down in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. If you're looking to support me and what I do here, you can subscribe to my Patreon down below. All of my patrons get early access to videos as well as downloads of the diagrams that pop up in all of my videos here. So if you want to go hang out with a wonderful little community of guitar lovers, I'd love to see you over there. Another great way to support me and what I'm doing is to purchase either my ebook or my my video courses, which are linked down below as well. It's a great way to get some educational content from me that's more in depth than I can go into in a 10 to 15 minute YouTube video. And last but not least, I have new videos coming out every single week, so I hope I'll see you in the next one. And until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.